Today in this lesson, we're going to be adding fractional expressions. And to do it, let's just start by thinking about what we've got up here on top to think about adding 3/20 plus 7/20. So you know that to add, we need the same denominator. And when we add that, we're going to add it and get 10/20. We keep that 20, the common denominator, then add the 3 plus 7 and get 10. Oh, but 10/20, we can see, reduces. So we're going to reduce it by dividing by 10 on top and bottom and come up with 1/2 for our answer. All right, so we're going to do just completely the same steps as we add fractions with some variables involved. Same thing. So we're going to this whole group will have the same denominator. We'll talk about finding common denominators later. But so today, with a like denominator, we're going to add the numerators, keep the same denominator, and then so if you've got like terms, you're going to add your like terms to the numerator. Then after you finish adding, so you got to add first, you're going to factor your numerator and factor your denominator and then cancel common factors so that you get the simplest answer possible. So let's just do a few examples. All right, so we've got the same denominator, 4x plus 12. So we're going to keep that denominator, then add the numerator, so that's just going to be x plus 3. Once I finish adding, I see that the denominator will factor. So I'm going to factor the denominator, so 4 comes out, and that leaves me with x. Oops, this should have been a plus right there. Plus 3. So my 4x plus 12, I should have had a plus in that. So now I have 4 and x plus 3. And then because my x plus 3's, remember that whenever you have the plus, it's a unit. Those are going to cancel. And I'm left with a 4. The 4 is in the denominator, though. So I need to make sure I put a 1 so that the 4 is still in the denominator. So 1/4 is going to be my answer for that. So remember that in order to cancel, you must be canceling a factor, not a term. All right, so next one, common denominator is a squared minus 9. So I'm going to keep that. Then I'm going to combine the terms in the numerator. So I have an a plus a, that gives me 2 a's. And then a 1 plus 5 gives me plus 6. So I've done my addition. Now I want to simplify it. So numerator has a GCF of 2. That leaves me with a plus 3 divided by denominators, the difference of squares. So a minus 3, a plus 3. Then my a plus 3's will cancel. And I'm left with 2 divided by a minus 3 for my answer. C, same thing. I have a common denominator of 5c minus 10. I'm going to keep that denominator and add my numerators. Let's see, I have a negative 5c and a positive 2c. That gives me a negative 3c. My 6 is a positive 6, so plus 6. And I need to factor. So I can factor out. Let's factor out a negative 3. Let's just factor out 3. So if we factor out, let's factor out negative 3. And that's going to leave me within c and then minus 2. Double check. Negative 3 times c gives me negative 3c. Negative times negative gives me a positive 6. And then divided by 5 is going to factor out and leave me with c minus 2. So then my c minus 2's will cancel, and I'll get negative 3/5 for that answer. All right, so next page we're going to subtract. It's the same concept, subtraction's just like addition, except you notice that what we're going to do is we're going to change that subtraction to addition of the opposite. So that will look like this. Here I have a subtraction. So there's my subtraction. So I am going to change it to addition and then make both of these the opposite sign, everything following that subtraction sign opposite. So it's going to give me a negative x, and it's going to give me a positive 2. So change the signs on both of those. And then once I have addition, just do what I did in the last section. And your denominator, now I have a 3x and a negative x gives me 2x. And then a negative 4 and a positive 2 gives me negative 2. Factor, so it gives me 2 times x minus 1 divided by 7 times x minus 1. So GCF for both of those. Then we'll cancel the x minus 1s, and we'll come up with 2/7 for that answer. B, again, notice it's subtraction, so I'm going to change that subtraction to addition, so plus, and that positive is going to become a negative 3m, and my positive 5 is going to become a negative 5. So when I add it, I will have m squared minus m in my denominator. My numerator, what do I have? I still have an m squared. There's no like terms for it. Then I have a minus 3m, no like terms for the m's. And then I have a positive 5 and a negative 5, which is a 0. So I can't do any more with those 5s. It's 0. So factor, I'm going to get m times m minus 3, take out a m GCF, and then another m GCF, so m times m minus 1. This time my m's are going to cancel, and I'm left with m minus 3 divided by m minus 1. C, subtraction, so let's change it to, again, addition. So make this addition, make that a negative, again, a negative. So when I add my 5c, negative 2c, that gives me 3c. Minus 12 and a minus 9 gives me a minus 21. And keep that denominator, 3c plus 12. So concentrate on that. Remember, the denominator stays the same, but you add the numerators. Factor, so that's 3 times c minus 7 divided by 3 times c plus 4. So 3 GCF for both of those. So the 3's are going to cancel, and I will end up then with c minus 7 divided by c plus 4. So D, got a little bit bigger denominator there. So we have, but it's still the same. A squared minus 8 minus 6 is the common denominator. Then my numerators will, well, I've got subtraction. So let's go back, and I've got subtraction. So I'm going to change it to addition, opposite, opposite. So then I'm going to get a minus 5a is a negative 4a. And 13 minus 1 is a plus 12. So again, I have a negative 4a, so I'm going to take out, when I factor out my GCF, I'll factor out a negative 4, and that's going to leave me with a minus 3 divided by, I've got 3 terms, there is not a GCF, so AC method, short, 2 numbers that multiply to be negative 6, would be 3 and 2. They're going to add up to negative 1. So minus 3 and plus 2. They multiply to be negative 6 on the end, and they add to be negative 1 in the middle. So a minus 3, a plus 2. So my a minus 3's cancel, and I'm left with negative 4 over a plus 2. All right, so we have one more page. So look at this one, 7, 6 plus, and then I have 5 over negative 6. Is 6 and negative 6 a common denominator? Well, not exactly, but a negative 5, 6, it doesn't matter whether your negative is on the bottom or whether it's on the top or whether it's just in the middle. A negative 5, 6 has one negative sign. It could be placed on in the denominator, it could be placed in the numerator, or it could just be placed in front of the fraction in general. So on our first one there, it's placed in the denominator. So, so that we can have a common denominator, why don't we just rewrite that, and let's place it instead of the denominator, let's just place it up in the numerator. And that's going to end up being 2/6, which is going to reduce to 1/3. I believe the steps that are shown down here is that you can multiply by -1 over -1. So there's our clever one, right? Negative over negative is +1. So it's a clever one, and it's going to switch the numerator to a -5 and the denominator to a +6. So I guess technically that's really what we're doing, is multiplying by that -1 over -1. And again, you can see there's all those three different ways of writing a negative fraction, with a denominator negative, with a numerator negative, or where the negative's just in front of the fraction. All right, so let's look at that in a little more complicated situation. So now take a look at example A. My denominators, one of them's 2x minus 6, and the other one's 6 minus 2x. So those are opposites of each other. The same two numbers, but in opposite subtraction order. So let's do what was suggested and multiply this by -1 over -1. So I will then have x over 2x minus 6 plus a -3 in the numerator. And the denominator, when I multiply that denominator by -1, it's going to change the two signs. So the 2x is positive, the 6 is negative. So I'm going to put it in the same order with a 2x minus 6. Take a minute and look at that, make sure you understand why that's happening. So now I've got the same denominator, and I'm going to add them. I'm going to factor the denominator. So 2 comes out of that, and it's x minus 3. And this is going to cancel, and I end up, oh, 2 is the denominator, so I need that 1 in the numerator, 1/2, instead of a 2. Now, I would just like to take a minute and just point out that it seems like every time we add that we reduce. These were just specially created problems so that you can see how you add first and reduce second. Often you do not have, or you're not able to reduce those fractions, but you always have to try if you can. All right, so here we go again. When I look at my two denominators, I notice y squared minus 2y and then 2y minus y squared. So again, negatives of each other. So I'm going to multiply by -1 over -1. So we'll have y squared plus 7, y squared minus 2y, plus, I'm going to distribute that top negative, so it's going to give me -6y minus 7. It's going to change both those signs. And the denominator becomes y squared minus 2y. So the y squared is positive, the 2y is negative. So add, so y squared minus 2y in the denominator, common denominator. Numerator is going to give me y squared minus 6y. Then we will factor. So I have y times y minus 6 divided by y times y minus 2. My y's cancel, and I get y minus 6 divided by y minus 2. Two more problems. C, same situation. You could, you've got that, now you've got a subtraction. And I just like to point out, when you have a subtraction, we talked about making it plus. I'm going to show this and then I'm going to erase it. making that plus a negative, right? But what I'd really like is I'd like to change the direction of the denominator. So we talked earlier about how when you have a minus, it can either go in the numerator or in the denominator. So what if we took it and instead of putting in the numerator, we put it in the denominator? So I would have a over a squared minus b squared, then plus b over, and that minus is going to change the direction to a squared minus b squared. You can do this a bunch of different ways. This is probably the most efficient, fewest steps is to do it this way, but you could do it combining all the things we've done with minuses before. This is a squared minus b squared, and then a plus b, and then that's a plus b over a minus b, a plus b, and my a plus b cancels, and my answer, again, that is in the denominator, so 1 over a minus b. So one last one, same situation. I've got a subtraction. I could choose to make it, again, I'm going to erase this. I could choose to make it plus the opposite, so plus a negative and a positive. I could choose to do that, but instead I'm going to choose to do this and make it plus, and then make this the opposite right there, those two instead. So rather than going up with it, I'm going to go down. So now I'm going to have a common denominator of r squared minus 5r. In the numerator, let's see what we've got. So this is all pluses up on top. So I get r minus r, so that's 0, and then 5 plus 5 is 10. Voila. Okay, this does factor into r and then r minus 5, but look at there, it's the first one that does not reduce, and that is my final answer. So there you have it, adding fractions with the same denominator.